following the next part on the program, which is a regulatory update, which will be given to you by Dr. Joerg Hofmann. He is senior partner with Melchers law firm. Joerg, please.
Thank you very much.
And please, if you have any questions, use the Slido app to ask questions.
And if you don't have any questions, don't use Slido then. Good morning. It's good to see you again. After that speech delivered by Mr. Buchholz, it's an easy job for me to provide an update on regulatory matters because you're well informed now, and I could simply copy and paste a lot of your contributions, Mr. Buchholz, because it was a roundup of what's timely at the moment, what goes on. And I tried to go deeper into some topics. We have two topics at least which are most relevant, timely, and of course urgent. One is, as you mentioned, the evaluation. Second one is the deposit limit issue. Of course, all these permissions expire by the end of this year, but what happens on 1st of January? So I will go step by step through these catalog of topics, and I will have a few other issues, maybe outlooks which could be relevant for us to be updated on what is currently happening in Germany. That's why you're all here. That's why this is an international conference. So we start with the evolution. As highlighted by Mr. Buchholz, the purpose of the evolution, of course, is to check whether all these provisions, all these tools provided by the interstate treaty achieve the goals of channelization. Channelization is more or less player protection. Channelization means we need to have the players play within that protected and regulated and supervised environment, of course, and not outside. So it's also a yardstick for the success of regulation if we look at the channelization rate. If this is too high, something goes wrong. So what happens at the moment is experts are looking on different successes, results of the regulation and its regulatory tools. The interim report is already there. It's by the end of 2023 and delivered in January. The next report, the final report, or the summary report, is expected to be submitted by 31st December next year, 2026. And in the meantime, all of us can probably serve to contribute if there are important aspects that need to be considered. We see that the German, let's say, as an example, sports betting market has experienced declining tax revenues and stakes since the new interstate treaty came into force in 2021, in July. Contrary to international trends in other jurisdictions surrounding Germany, where the legal market is shrinking here, well, lost revenues are migrating to the black market in significant volumes. That is something that indicates sort of a disaster. Nobody wants that. It's not about losing money, it's not about losing tax revenues, it's also about losing players, and it's about losing control. We can only protect a player who is playing within our environment. If he's playing outside, there is no protection at all. Even if we have the most advanced and most sophisticated system of player protection and are going to develop this further, if it doesn't reach out to the player, it's worth nothing. That is the disastrous result of the assessment if the regulation, if the situation in Germany is too supportive to black market operators. We have different numbers about black market shares, and I will not provide my estimates here because later, which is one of my highlights every year with Gaming in Germany conferences, Josh is going to provide latest analysis of the German market, of surrounding international markets in terms of channelization rates, in terms of where do players play. It's at 11:50, don't miss this presentation. It's really solid because the source for this data is unique. It is based on evidence, based on research, and not just based on estimates. That makes a difference to so many discussions we've seen in various conferences. We can say maybe the black market share is higher than 50%. We can say it's more than 60, we can say it's more than 40. It's something around this. But with one word, it is too high. And so far, we have a demand to change things to the better. Need for adjustments will be sort of a result. I appreciate Mr. Buchholz saying we need to make the procedures easier. A very good example is the permission of single games. It is an accident of the lawmaker that every single game, and we're talking about thousands, needs to be analyzed and permitted, even if it has been done with the same game, with the same random number generator number for 100 times. And this takes approximately 30 minutes because there has to be documentation for the files. And so if there's the famous or the most popular game, it's been maybe permitted 20 times, another 30 minutes will be spent, will be wasted. And of course, these things need to be amended. That are practical things. Same thing we are discussing is how effective in terms of player protection are these details where the devil might be inside, like fast repetitions, the 5-second spin duration on average, the alternative scenarios been presented to GGL. It's not an easy task for GGL to make a decision, what can be permitted, what can't be permitted, but one thing is for sure, we need a practical solution which is accepted by players. If the players who are used to play 3 seconds on average everywhere outside of Germany and inside if it's a black market operation, then he decides where to play. So there are a couple of alternative solutions, suggestions, which should be considered. Separation of gambling forms. If I play outside, if I play in another jurisdiction, I can simply move from one side, from one section to the other section. We need to check whether, based on evidence, that was also highlighted by Mr. Buchholz, everything in terms of evaluation must be based on evidence. Is this helpful, is this supportive, or is this blocking, is this preventing players from accepting the offer as being enough attractive? The security deposit is a big hurdle, in particular for smaller operators. 5 million minimum can be questions. Do we need a bank guarantee? Do we have alternatives? This is a very, very important point, and I know GGL is looking at this topic, hopefully trying to support a solution which provides easier, better alternatives than the current situation. The amount of sports betting that can be offered in Germany is still pretty much restricted. If you compare this to other jurisdictions like UK, I think we're only offering, let's say, 30% of what's offered for sports and markets in the UK. Compared to international standards, we're very much behind. We do this because of, well, player protection reasons, because of a settlement agreement which has been signed in late 2022, but is that the solution? Are we still competitive? That is the challenges of our market. Then part of the elevation is also how can we support the enforcement? That's very important. One thing is the attractiveness of the offerings, which could make the player decide in favor of existing regulation to play in Germany. But then we have a black market, and the black market can be beaten by the offers in Germany are attractive enough so that no players considers to play outside, or by way of enforcement. There's payment blocking, interestingly, works quite well, and as mentioned, IP blocking. So far, IP blocking didn't work because the current regulation in Section 9 of the Interstate Treaty faced legal concerns in administrative court proceedings. The problem was in particular that the internet access provider took the view that they are not responsible for content. And so far, now there was a demand to change the law, and there's a notification procedure with the EU Commission. I think it's already done so far. Maybe Mrs. Wierzchiewski, you can confirm more information about this, but I think the notification procedure with EU has been successfully conducted so far, I guess. So it's on its way, and we can expect a new law probably being applied within I would say, until the end of the second quarter of 2026. It's an estimate, but it could be very likely that this will take place, which is, of course, good news. And so this would enable the authorities to take measures against, or with the cooperation of internet access providers like Telecom, to remove or block these illegal offerings after prior notification of unauthorized gamblings to these providers. Well, if this is sufficient to combat the market, that's the big question, because of course, blocks can be quickly circumvented in the digital space through new domains and technical workarounds. So it's one step into the right direction, but probably it's not enough. And I come back to my thesis that the most successful and the most efficient tool to combat the black market is the attractiveness of the offerings, nothing else. Because if the player says no, then we can discuss all these tools, doesn't work. Deposit limit is something I mentioned. You know that is this 1,000 euro deposit limit per player per month, which can be extended up to 10,000 and with the combination of a more advanced monitoring up to 30,000 per player. All these permissions expire by the end of this year. The decision how to continue and when will not be made by GGL itself. It will be made within the Verwaltungsrat, the administrative board, so the gremium with 16 representatives of the German Länder, the German states. If I'm not mistaken, the next meeting of the Verwaltungsrat will be on November 19, so not far from today. It's correct, 19? November 19? Thank you, Mr. Buchholz. So we can expect within a week time to learn more about it. But we don't know how the decision will be made and which will be the result. I see two alternatives, three. One is worst case, no decision, meaning the permissions expire. As of January 1st next year, the standard deposit limit is 1,000 euro and will not be higher. This will drive a significant amount of players immediately to black market operations. As of day one, definitely. Would be a disaster, and hopefully it's a no-go for the decision makers. Second alternative is a decision will introduce a new system. So far, it's been discussed to look at tools like open banking. Kontoblick is one of these topics which were mentioned. The industry is very reluctant because we see the risk that the hurdle for players to allow access for the operator to look in the bank account and an algorithm is then checking, is your account fine? Can you afford what you're doing? Probably people will not accept it. I know it works in various sectors, but well, here's the alternative of black market operators where you don't have to check anything, don't have to disclose anything. So this is a problem needs to be discussed. It will check the creditworthiness of a player by way of algorithms. Also, the data protection is raised so far. So the first discussion so far was up in the air, but we don't know how this ends up. This third alternative I see is the interim solution, and I think probably it's the best solution at the moment. It's just the extension of existing permissions, find a legal basis, until an alternative has been calmly determined, which works and which is acceptable for the industry, for the authority to provide a wonderful solution that is, well, the one for the future and destroys every legal concerns, of course. We talked about the black market, and we know that black market is the biggest challenge. As I said before, Josh Hodgson will provide his new numbers. For us, for the industry, I think the black market is the biggest enemy we do have because it takes the players away, it takes the revenues away, and the stakes, everything. So I skip that and leave it to Josh to educate us on latest figures. One of my favorite topics when I talk about development and evaluation is something where we have no development at all, which is the Section 22C of the Interstate Treaty. That is the online casino regulation. Those of you who come from other jurisdictions, if you talk about online casino, then we are talking about online casino. If you talk about online casino in Germany, it's not the online casino which you consider it to be, like slot machines and table games. It's only bank holder games, roulette, blackjack, so these kind of bank holder games. And as you know, there's a certain regulation which allows the German states either to run the online casino by themselves, which we could call a monopoly, no private operator, based on a law which can be passed by these particular lenders, or you can conduct a tender to license private operators. That happened in Schleswig-Holstein. These licenses were granted, and that's the only state so far who has granted these licenses. North Rhine-Westphalia is trying to create a system, a legal basis for that. So far hasn't succeeded. And then Bavaria is the state alternative who's it's offering the casino license in Bavaria. But if you want to play roulette in other German states, you're happy to follow the offerings of the black market, nothing else. The legal basis has been applied since, or could be applied since 1st of July 2021 up to now. It's a complete failure of regulation. We are supporting the black market here. I suggest, and that is part of an evaluation consideration, I suggest to remove these 22C. It's highly legally uncertain because there's a monopoly on one hand and the private market on the other. You can only justify a monopoly if it's crystal clear that only the state is able to conduct this and to achieve these goals. But if the same provision offers states, monopolies, and private operations, it couldn't be worked. That's under EU law. It's not thinkable. It's all those people in Hesse who combined an online gaming law with the casino, land-based casino law. They're going to change it now just due to the risk of legal uncertainty. My suggestion is remove that, delete it completely, and integrate these online casino licenses into the virtual slot machine license, and then take the chance to rename it, name it online casino. This is the understanding of every player. It should be a solid and combined licensing regime. Everything else is simply nonsense, and I do not understand how the lawmakers, when they drafted the interstate treaty, could come up with such an idea. That makes no sense at all. Finally, and this is the biggest burden apart from the black market taxation, we have these 5.3 nominative tax rates based on stakes. If we are running on a slot machine, we know there is an RTP, return to player. Could be maybe, let's say, roughly around 95%. When I add the tax rate and it's 100% and I'm losing money. So I have to reduce the RTP to make any profits to be, well, at least able to survive the business. The black market, they don't have these problems. They don't pay taxes. They have to, but they don't. Legally, they have to, but of course they don't, with one very few exceptions maybe. So if we will not replace stake as the tax basis by gross gaming revenue, it will be a burden that makes the business almost impossible not to be competitive. And almost every jurisdiction around Germany, of course, is using gross gaming revenue as the tax base. I think this is really important. What can be done? We need a motion in the Bundesrat, the Federal Council, to consider a change of the legal basis. And then probably it happens. Those of you who were here last year may remember there was the Italian regulator giving the presentation, former Italian regulator, and then some years ago we had the same situation as we have it in Germany here. We see black market rates are too high. Many people played outside, so we changed from stake to gross gaming revenue, the tax rate. We allowed more places, more sports, and more competitions to be subject to betting. And overnight, we achieved a rise of participation of stakes and, of course, revenue of taxes. Very important to look at this and not to oversee this. Before I close, there's one thing. It's always good to close with some positive news, although not everything was negative, I'll share it. But something positive, it's about personal matters with GGL. Mind you, there's a position, we have two co-chairs. One co-chair is Mr. Benter. The other position is vacant for almost 2 years. But this will change, because at the end of October, so just a few days ago, the deadline to submit an application for this position expired. So within the next weeks, and probably by the end of this year, someone new will be the new co-chair of GGL. And then we have the two co-chairs again. And I think this is really good news. And we hope, and of course we believe, the right person will be able to get this position. With that positive outlook for 2026 coming up very soon, I thank you for your attention and wish you a wonderful conference.
Thank you very much, Joerg. Thank you very much. Please stay on
Sure.
the podium.
Sure.
Thank you very much. I had a little bit of a almost surprise there. I thought you were going to tell the audience that you applied for the job, but
Well, two reasons. I missed the deadline, of
Yeah,
course.
okay, yeah.
It would be fun for me to do this. I really would be highly motivated. But I'm not a civil servant. I have no experience,
I know.
past with administration. So
Of course,
They will
the
reject it.
disclaimer is always there with it.
Yes.
But before we let you go off the podium, we have a great number of questions, and we will be answering the top questions to you. The first question is, do you expect any increase in the monthly deposit limit?
Well, that means I have to interpret this question. It could mean that do I expect that we will get a solution before the year is over, or do I even expect that it will be higher than maybe 30,000? This year, I missed to bring my crystal ball. I brought it last year, and it didn't work, as you can remember. But personally, I do not expect that it will be higher than 30,000, because this is a discussion which is led by politicians.
Yeah.
It comes from the lender. And my experience, my personal experience, is the lenders have no idea what they are talking about. If they talk about regulations, they think they are doing good. And then we have also in Germany, we distinguish between A lenders and B lenders, depending on political parties. A lenders are also deciding the same. I will never understand why. Everybody has his own brain, could use it, but sometimes it's critical. And I think if we decide on numbers, and the higher these numbers are, the more frightening, the more shocking they are. But it is always a one-size-fits-all solution. That means if I determine the threshold, let's say it's 30,000, or even standard of 1,000, and this is applicable to every player. It could be a billionaire, no way to deposit more than 30,000. That drives all the high rollers away. That is a system which is unique in Germany and other jurisdictions. Regulators making very good experiences with limited set by the players. And of course, then if you do so, and if you allow people to, let's say, deposit 100,000 or even more, I would say, why not?
Yeah.
If I check this player, if I take this responsibility, check this player, and the monitoring system is so advanced, and I can say, due to the development of artificial intelligence, it will even be easier to monitor at its best. Then I would say it's a good solution. But politically, I do not expect this. And I'm confident that we will find a solution, or that GDL and the administrative board will find a solution, not to come up with no alternative for 1st of January, but either continuing or providing something that replaces. And should be practical, feasible, because time is running.
In conclusion, you're basically saying politicians will decide, but as always, they want to do good, but sometimes.
Maybe one remark, because I wish make GGL a federal office, a federal authority, not based on an interstate treaty. Every federal office in Germany has the power to make decisions, and you find the expert inside of the authority, not outside. So why should GGL listen to politicians in doing their job? That is a compromise which is, well, the DNA of the interstate treaty, but it's blocking an excellent development which we could have.
Final question for you. How optimistic are you personally about the outcome of the Glücksspielstaatsvertrag evaluation?
I think there will be minor adjustments which are supportive. Some proceedings and processes will be made easier, like the permission of games. In total, I think the attitude behind the interstate treaty will remain the same. It's better than no regulation, and there are some really good points that work and be successful. But those aspects, those criteria, which we can consider being relevant in terms of making the offerings, the legal offerings, attractive enough to compete with the black market, will remain an issue. And I'm not so optimistic that this will change. I am optimistic that the discussion for taxation at some point will have to be made, because we cannot continue.
Let's end on that positive note. Thank you very much,
Thank you
Dr.
very much.
Joerg Hofmann.
Thank you
very much.